right. So once again, I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to today's session. I'm very excited. I'm very glad that we got the opportunity to spend some time this afternoon to learn and to equip ourselves and to master the art of persuasive communication because this is so important and this is so crucial in order for us to be successful and to be able to lead people and to be able to guide people. We as leaders ought to communicate, and communication is part of leadership. So, just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey, and I'm the Executive Director of the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies. And I am very excited to welcome all of you to join me this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are located on the map, um, to go through this process of learning. Few others will join us, but we don't want to wait that much. And so I want to give some few household rooms. We are going to be very interactive. We will use the chat room to give responses. We will use the emojis to show facial expressions or digital expressions, if you will. We will, if you want to get the attention, you may want to use the raise hand button. We will break into at least one breakout room to have an interaction and discussion for about 15 minutes, and we'll come back into the main forum for us to wrap up and all that. So I am very excited, and I hope you are excited. Basically, what I want you to understand is that mastering the art of persuasion, and by the way, the reason why I'm not on camera is because I don't want to distract you. I want you to pay attention without being distracted. So I'll come on camera when we are having engagement, but whilst I'm talking, I want to be off camera so that I'll be able to engage with all of you well and precisely. So now, mastering the act of persuasion for effective leaders, we could refer to as a leader's ability to convince, influence, and inspire others to willingly or willfully support a vision, to be able to make decisions, and to be able to take actions. So, the whole concept of mastering the art of persuasion for effective leaders is basically your ability to be able to convince and influence people and inspire those you are working with, those you are with, and those who are coming after you to be able to drive home a goal. So effective persuasion or effective persuasion skills enables leaders to align behind shared vision and shared goals. So you must always keep it at the back of your mind that whilst you are leading people, you are actually creating an environment where people are being led. And I must tell you this, you will learn as we go along, that you cannot be a leader without followership. You cannot be a leader without followership. It is crucial, it is important. You need to understand that leadership comes with followership. So if you want to lead people, you must know that they will look up to you and follow you. So what are the course objectives for today? So today we are going to actually look at, by the time we are done with this class, our goal is to identify the core element of persuasive communication, which will include ethos, pathos, and logos, and how we can effectively apply them. And so by the time we are done with the course, my expectation and my goal is that you will be able to understand these principles without any shadow of doubt or fear in your mind. Secondly, I also want to ensure that by the time we are done with this course, You should be able to analyze your audience, to understand their values, to be able to motivate and prioritize based on persuasive messaging. What does that mean? It means that by the time we are done with this course, when you are interacting with people, when you are engaging with people, you should be able to use persuasive language to be able to get their attention. More importantly, you should be able to use compelling messages to grab attention of people. It's an act, and my hope is that by the time we are done with this uh, training today, you will be able to use compelling messages to get the attention of those who actually matters in your line of communication or in your line of work. And then finally, by the time we are done, the expectation is that you will be able to actually apply these techniques that we have all learned today. And so this will be the basis for our discussion, our learning, and our interaction as we speak now. So the question to ask here will be, what is effective leadership? Now, I want you to go to the chat room and I want you to, in your own words, in your own simplistic way, put in the chat what effective leadership means to you, or in your own understanding. It doesn't have to be a lecture, it's just one line, two lines of what effective leadership means to you. I know I've put a definition there. Ignore my definition, but in your own words, just put in the chat what effective leadership means to you. What is effective leadership in one word? I just want to capture the thought process in one word. Well, let's see. Result oriented from Manuel. Result oriented. Because we are having an interaction and it's not a lecture, I will need engagement, because your engagement is what will make the class interesting. So I want to hear from you. I've only heard from Manel and Vida. Vida said influence. Vida said, and Kim said, an effective leader creates cohesion and a psychologically safe culture. Amazing. And Amma said, creator of other leaders. And Maxwell said, impactful. You are all absolutely right. The fact of the matter, and Caroline said, teamwork and excellence. You are all absolutely right. As far as the and Gabriel said, positive influence and significant impact. Amazing. So, with all that you've all put in the chat, we can sum them up to say that effective leadership refers to a leader's ability to inspire, to influence, and to empower others to achieve common goals. So you can only consider yourself a leader if you have the skills, ability to be able to influence, inspire, and empower. Now, remember, dealing with human beings can be as tough as you can think of. And I'm sure as we go along, folks like Kim Lamonte, who is an HR specialist, can share experiences with us as to how difficult it is to lead people and to influence people. You have to pull a teeth out of nothing to get people to follow you and people to believe in your leadership and people to support you. So, in a nutshell, we could say, as a sort of a definition for the purpose of this class or this learning, we could say that effective leadership refers to a leader's ability to inspire, to influence, and to empower others to achieve a common goal. Now, having said that, there are absolute characteristics of a leader. In order for you to be considered effective leader, you need to exhibit certain characteristics. And these are all preamble to our learning before we dive into the actual learning. Now, I have listed few characteristics that is expected of a leader, which include vision, integrity, communication, empowerment, adaptability, inspiration, decisiveness, and self-awareness. Now, other than what I have listed, I want you to go into the chat room again. Other than what I have listed, please put one or two other characteristics that you believe aligns with an effective leader, other than what I have put in the chat. So you can go into the chat room and begin to actually type, other than what is there, what you also consider as other forms of characteristics that you believe that a leader must have. And Yah says emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, that's a very powerful term, emotional intelligence. And Udrak said active listening. Let's see here, or listening with intent. Very good. Amma said that trustworthy right attitude. You guys are just blowing me with some amazing knowledge. And Gabriel said result oriented, tolerance, and accept diverse views. Amazing. And Emmanuel said influence. Caroline said accountable. Yas said empathy. Kim said servant and selfless. Dr. Ambrose said highly committed. Udrak said must have a team spirit. And then Christopher said self-awareness. Rodika said team together. Caroline said accountable. You are all absolutely right. And Dr. Kendrick Kodu said that character, positive attitude, and love. And Caroline added one more to say fairness. Now, these are all super cool things that we need to understand, that they become part and parcel of a characteristics of an effective leader. Now, when we sum up all that you have said, it comes to the very things that I've listed on the platform. Vision. As a leader, in order for you to be effective, you ought to have a clear, meaningful, and aspirational vision. So if you are taking note, pay attention. As a leader, in order for you to be effective, you need to have a clear, meaningful, and aspirational vision, so that others can understand and rally behind you. So if you're asking yourself, why is it that people are not following me? Then remember that your vision, it's not that clear enough. It is not that meaningful enough. Neither is it more aspirational for people to come along with you. Remember, we mentioned in the introduction that followership is the other side of leadership. Then we can also sum all that you said into integrity. Integrity. Now, being ethical, honest, transparent, and leading by example. Now, this particular competence or character of an effective leader, it's so crucial when you are leading people. Because the reason it's so crucial is because it builds trust and credibility. So when you tell people that we are meeting at the foyer at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then you decided to be there at 10:30 in the morning, you lose credibility and trust for the people you are leading. So it is very important that if you want to be an effective leader, your integrity must be spot on. Communication. You must also have a very, very clear convening goal, which means that you must plan to have an active listening temperament, which is you should be able to listen actively to understand what people are saying. In that way, you are able to connect as a leader to your team. So if you are on a different page and your team is on a different page, clearly it suggests that you are either not communicating clearly, and that can easily have an impact on your effort to lead a team. So it is very, very, very important to pay attention and get everything into perspective. Now, empowerment, inspiration, decisiveness, and self-awareness, all these are very, very strategic communication tool that a leader must have. I'm sure you are saying in your head, but I have all these things. I know them. Why do I have to be reminded? The reason why you have to be reminded is because we are building a system where you can persuasively lead your team to come along with you. And as a leader, these competence are non-negotiable in your effort to lead. Now, let's quickly look at the act of persuasion. The act of persuasion. The act of persuasion refers to as the skill or ability to successfully convince someone to adopt a new belief or take a particular action. And this involves using the foundations of the things we talked earlier on, which is the effective communication and psychological tools in order to influence people's attitude, opinions, and decisions. So the act of persuasion basically is that as an individual, as a leader, you should be able to use that skill to successfully convince people. So if we come into our day-to-day lifestyle, now think about it. Now let's go to the chat and let's do some exercise in the chat. Just a quick 1 minute. Name a leader. It can be a spiritual leader. It can be a secular leader. It can be a president. It can be a family. Name a leader that you know, that you think has used persuasive communication to influence people to follow them. For instance, I can begin by saying that Donald Trump has used persuasive communication as an effective leader to be able to get people to follow him, irrespective of how you think of his behavior or his thought process. He has the ability to have over 70 million people in America to support him. So I'm reading all the things. Yes, I see Putin. Yes, Nicole said Putin. Yudrak said Donald Trump. Nicole said Donald Trump. Guys, I just want to know what leader you think has used persuasive sort of communication to bring people along. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. Martin Luther King. Thank you, Dr. Andrew. And Kim also said Obama, Trump, Martin Luther King, and Nicole said the late Jerry John Rawlings. These are all amazing responses that all of you guys are sharing. Barack, yes, we can. They have used persuasive language to convince people to follow them. And if you go deep into our discussion as we move forward, you will come to the realization that a lot of these people, what they promised wasn't there. That is why people voted. I see my name there. Thank you, Nicole. Oprah, yes. You see, there is a lot of reason. You see that a lot of these people, they actually do not have what it takes. But because they were able to use persuasive language, they were able to convince people to come along with them. Just as I think Nicole said, or Kim said, Barack Obama said, we can. That alone was enough persuasive communication to get people to come along with him, even though they couldn't. Now, we saw the same thing with, we are talking a little political here. We saw the same thing with Joe Biden telling folks that, hey, if you elect me into power, I'm going to write off your student debt. Persuasive language. He knows very well that there is a hurdle in front of him because there is an opposing view to that talk. But because he has mastered the act of persuasive talking, he was able to use that as a tool to get people to come along. Thank you, guys. I am really impressed with this class. Now, other than that, now let's also take a critical look at some of the elements of the act of persuasion. Now, we could see about 6 of these core elements. Now, there are a lot of them, but I believe for the purpose of this learning, these 6 will be much helpful. Now, the first element that we want to look at in persuasive leadership is what we call ethos. Now, ethos actually helps us in establishing your credibility as a leader. It also enables you to establish your authority. It also helps you to establish your trustworthiness with your audience. And what it does is that it enables you to create an ethical appeal to people. So remember, the act of persuasion involves using the act of ethos, which is your ability to use influential language to establish credibility, to establish your authority, and to establish your trustworthiness. At the end of the day, when you achieve ethos, what you are actually achieving is that you are creating an ethical appeal to people. Guys, when people trust you, when people believe in you, when people have confidence in you, what is going to happen is that they are going to follow you everywhere you go. And I can tell you for a fact, they are going to follow you. The second element, which I believe you are paying attention to, is pathos. So we talk about ethos. Now we are talking about pathos. Now, pathos are also elements of persuasive communication. And the use of pathos actually helps us to build or to appeal to the emotions and values and motivation and imagination of your audience. Now, what it does is that pathos actually helps you to create an emotional appeal. So that is why you will see that somebody will be there and then they will create an emotional situation. We see that in relationships. Let's laugh a bit. You will see a woman tells a guy that I think this relationship is over. I'm no longer interested. And then immediately the man will use the pathos persuasive language. If you go, I'll kill myself. I'm going to die. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Without you, there's nothing else I can do. You are the only mosquito left in my net. You are the last sardine left in my troubles, and all manner of pathos way of communicating. You are touching the emotional being of people. So as a leader, when you are leading a team, you must know when to use the pathos and the ethos communication skill as a way of influencing and pursuing people to come along with you. And then you also have the audience analysis. You see, you must, as a leader, as a team lead, as a husband, as a wife, as a leader, one of the things you need to understand quickly in Act of Persuasion is that you need to research your audience to understand their needs and their values. And not only their needs and their values, but you also need to understand their intentions and leverage their points. What this does is that it allows you to target your messaging effectively. If I know that Kim Lamontere has a need for training, when I am speaking to her, I will speak in such a way, a manner that by the time we are done, I have talked about training about 3 or 4 times to pop her mind and her intention into the training program. So audience analysis is very, very, very important in persuasive leadership. You need to research and understand. Again, it is also good in negotiation. For instance, if you are going to meet somebody to discuss a very important issue or a very important matter, the fact of the matter is that you want to ensure that you get into this person's space by ensuring that you understood the emotional, the intentional, and the value needs of this person. So if you have not researched to understand the value needs of people, what is going to happen is that you are going to spend some time doing hard work, but you can do an easy work by knowing the intentional needs of this person. Because when people needs are not met, you will not be able to sustain them. Then you also have the message crafting. You see, when you are writing messages, or when you are even typing an email, or when you are even sending a short WhatsApp messages, if you know how to do persuasive communication, you should be able to structure compelling content and frame your argument in the way that resonates with your audience. For instance, I know that Amabote is the lead deacon in her church. When I am crafting a persuasive message to her, I will begin my messaging by, how are you? I pray the good Lord is taking good care of you. I have already crafted a message to draw her attention because she loves that. She wants to hear God. The same way, if I know that Rodica, all the way in Romania, love peace and humanity, I will begin crafting my message to her by saying, may peace be on earth. May peace be with you. The initial preamble is enough to get her attention. That is how you craft a message persuasively. Because whether or not the person will actually take the content serious depends on the crafting of the message. It's very, very important. It's very, very important. The next thing that we need to also pay attention is the delivery and the style. Guys, using our verbal and non-verbal techniques to convey sincerity, confidence, and handle objections are critical in persuasive communication. Why? Because it allows you to It actually allows you to affect the stylistic appeal. Why? Because once your style of delivery and your style of communication resonate with your audience, you are able to quickly get them into your space. So this is where you need to understand that the mastering the art of persuasion, it is not a marathon, guys. It is not a sprint. I'm sorry. It's a marathon. It takes practice. But as leaders, as you continue to practice how to speak persuasively, you will become more influential in your selling ideas, in motivating your teams, and winning support for various initiatives. Because you need to understand that the most adaptive persuaders blend ethos, pathos, and logos to maximize their impact. I think I have spoken enough from the intro, from the basis to the key element. Is there any question? Is there anything that need clarification? Uh, is there anything that we can utilize in this what we have covered so far? If not, I will ask that you go into the chat. And okay, I think Caroline said, what forms the basis of logos? So remember, the basis of logos are actually formed based on statistics. They are formed based on using facts. They are formed based on using logical reasoning. And they are usually used as an evidential way of appealing to people's sense of rationality. You know, the reason is because it constitutes a logical appeal. Let me give you an example. An example says that all men of age 50 and above need to go through a prostate cancer scanning. Now, it becomes an appeal to persuade people when you show them what the statistics looks like. The statistics look as that if you are between the ages of 40 and 50, the chances of you getting a prostate is higher. So it is the statistics and the fact that you are using to appeal for people. The same way, if you want a woman to go and do smear paps on their breast, you tell them and show them the statistics of the number of people that get impacted within that period. So to answer your question clearly, Caroline, pathos are usually based on using facts, statistics, and logical reasoning, because the whole concept of pathos is to use an appeal approach to get something. I hope I answer you clear. If the answer is good for you, please give me a thumbs up so I know that you got the answer correct. Now, Udrak also asked a question. He said, is there a gender influence to what kind of element a leader can use? Example, are female more open to pathos than ethos, or vice versa? That's a very, very intelligent question, Udrak. I would say that there are no evidence or scientific proof to show that the use of pathos and ethos or legos are based on gender. But what I can say is that it is more effective as a way of using that tool to achieve what you are looking for. For instance, again, if a woman wants to get attention of a man, absolutely the woman is not going to use logos because it's about excuse me, it's about facts and figures. But the woman can actually use pathos because the woman is going to appeal to the emotions and the values of that man. Whereas a man, it's more likely to use ethos because the man is going to talk more about credibility. I am wealthy. You can trust me. You can believe on me. I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm going to stand firm with you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to prove to you that I am the head of the home. I will support you and I will stand with you. A man is more likely to use that ethos because they want to establish credibility, whereas a woman will appeal to your conscience and your imagination to get your attention. So I hope that also helps you, Drak. Let's see if the other questions here. Manel, all the way from Denmark. Manel said, at what point is pathos an appropriate style to use? Well, like I just explained right now, pathos are an appealing, or it's an emotional appeal to something. So whenever there is an opportunity to use your emotions to get what you are looking for, you are better off using pathos because you are touching the emotional needs of people. You know, the reason why when something goes wrong, you will see people crying. They are crying in order to win the emotional well-being of people around them. So pathos becomes the most appropriate tool to use when you are appealing to the emotions and values of other people. So let's see if we have a couple more questions here. All right. So, and guys, when I answer your question and it's great, give me a thumbs up so at least I know that I answered it very well. I'm facilitating, so I want to do that interaction with you. Now, the other question here came from Caroline. Said, as a leader in the corporate sector, how do you control pathos with a guarantee that ethos is not overlooked? The balance, or it is dependent on circumstances? Good question. Now, the reason why you are learning these things is because when you are knowledgeable, you are able to quickly determine if someone is using pathos or someone is using ethos or someone is using logos on you. And so as a leader, you must be very, 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 very smart in your mind to know when somebody is using an approach on you. So in the corporate world, you need to pay attention to ensure that it is minimized, or you have a way of turning it into your advantage. For instance, if I sit with you for an interview and I realize that based on our interaction, you gave me the impression that I am the most qualified. You have never seen somebody with such a qualification like me, the experiences I have. Now you have given me a reason, because remember, you use the logos to tell me about the facts that all the people you have interviewed, I am the one who has the best chance of getting the job. Now, as the individual, I am actually going to fall on using pathos to negotiate my salary. Well, you see, because of my background and experience that I have, giving me $200,000 a year, I think, my last job, I was making 200,000. So anyway, I better stay at my last job because, now you are appealing to the emotion of the hiring manager. Now you are using the tool that you have learned in doing that negotiation. So that is the way it ought to be managed in the corporate sector. Caroline, if I give you a good answer, please give me a thumbs up so I know that I am on the right path with you. Now let's see. So Bosma also said, please, at what point can you use the three together at the same time? Very good question. You can use all the three if you have mastered them. And so if, for instance, I am going into an interview, let's use an interview as an example. I am going to use logos to sell myself. How am I going to do that? I'm going to give you the statistics of my performance. When I was working with Team A, I actually was adjourned the best employee. I made 300,000 net profit to the company, and the company awarded me as the best employee for the last 3 consecutive time. Not only that, I ended up also being promoted 3 times within 1 year. I am using letters, Bossman, you understand? I'm using letters to sell myself because I'm giving you facts and figures. What am I doing there? I am constituting a logical appeal to you. And after I have gotten your attention, then I will begin to use the ethos strategy on you. How? Because what ethos does is that it appeals to the ethical motion of people. So this is where I will tell you that, well, because I was promoted 3 times in a year, I was able to grow my department to the point that not a single money was lost. I ensure that we were accountable to the dime of everything. What am I doing here? I am using the ethical approach, meaning that I am establishing in your mind that you can trust me when it comes to ethics. I will save the company money and the company will make a lot of profits. And then in the end, when I have pursued you completely and I've finished you, then I'll step into my pathos and begin to use the emotional appeal to get the right salary for my job. Even though the job may already have a salary listed for it, I'm using my pathos to negotiate my salary and to get myself forward on that. Great. Bossman, if it's a good answer, please give me a thumbs up so I know that you got a good response. Let's see. More questions are coming in. Let's see. During campaign, I think. Okay, but okay. So I think I understand. Okay, great. Now let's hear what Prof has to say about that too. Yes, you are right. During campaigns, you can use different languages to win the attentions of people. That is why you will see that a politician says one thing, when they come to power, they say another thing. And the next time they are looking to be re-voted into power, you see them say another thing altogether. And you will be shocked that you get people to follow them. So that's why you will see, for instance, those of you in Ghana, you realize that a good example is the current vice president. The current vice president said at this point in time, we should pay taxes on those things, pay taxes on all the things that he propagated. Now he's going to run for presidency. He said, when I come to power, I will scrap all these things. They are useless. We don't have to pay them. A lot of people were lambasting him in public, but what they didn't realize is that he had mastered the art of persuasive communication. So he's appealing to the conscience of people using these 3 competencies to get his way. Once he becomes president, he's on the seat. Nobody will tell him what to do. You can say all that you want to say, he's already on the seat. So this is how, and Dr. Ambrose said, I think the key to understand when and how to use each one of 3 is how to use each one based on the message from the moderator. Absolutely, you are absolutely right. And Bossman said, so experience and emotions are important when dealing with each other. I mean, you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right, Bossman. And maybe in future you enroll in one of the JAGILS classes, the Executive Strategic Management course. There is a course which is being taught. In fact, this year is going to be taught by Reverend Dr. Kendrick Todo, which is emotional intelligence. Now, when you go through a thorough emotional intelligence course, you will appreciate that in everything that we do, It is about emotions and influence. Thank you very much. I believe we have talked a lot, and so for want of time, because so far we've done about 50 minutes. So for want of time, I want us to move forward so that we can finish the rest of the things as quickly as we can. So guys, with your permission, if you don't mind, I want to move on. All right. So the next thing is, now we are diving and combining the two. We've talked about persuasion and we've talked about leadership. We've looked at the element and the characteristics of leadership, and we also looked at the elements of persuasive communication. Now, when we combine the two, now let's introduce the whole subject of the importance of persuasive leadership roles. Now, I want you to understand that mastering the act of persuasions empowers leaders to enroll others without coercion or manipulation. It is very important to understand, very, very, very important to understand what I am saying here, because you need to understand that persuasion is a critical skill for leaders to achieve their goals. You cannot be an effective leader if you don't have the ability to persuade. I tell people all the time, if you don't have what it takes to persuade, you cannot lead anybody. In fact, you cannot even lead your children at home. You cannot lead your spouses. You cannot lead your boyfriends. You cannot lead your girlfriends. You cannot lead your church leaders. You cannot lead your co-workers. You cannot lead if you don't have the persuasive skill. And you must also understand that effective persuasion helps leaders to influence and motivate others towards their shared vision. Somebody comes to you and share with you, this is what I want to do. As a persuasive leader, what do you do in order to motivate the person to come to where he or she ought to be? This is the reason why I want you to understand that persuasion empowers leaders to enroll others without coercion. And it is equally important to understand that by combining reasons and emotions, ethics and enthusiasm, as well as knowledge and listening, influential leaders inspire their team to make decisions and dedicate themselves to collective purpose. What does this mean? It means that it drives alignment, ownership, and impact. It drives alignment, ownership, and impact. And when there is an alignment, ownership, and impact, the truth of the matter is that you will be able to pursue people. It is always important for me to re-emphasize that the act of persuasion is not manipulation. Keep that in mind. You are not manipulating people. You are using an act of communication to achieve a purpose. So if you are not careful, you can mistakenly think it is manipulation. Now, let's also look at the role of trust and credibility in persuasion. You see, when aiming to pursue others, guys, you ought to understand that you ought to willfully adapt to ideas and changes. And by so doing, what you are doing is that you are creating a system of essential trust. Without trust, people are unlikely to genuinely buy into your vision. If those people don't trust you, they will not buy into your vision, period. The reason you will see a woman dedicate her entire life to a man is because she had trusted the man based on what the man told her. or based on what that woman said to him. That is why they are together. Divorce and other fight and challenges happen when that trust is broken. And so it's the same way in the corporate. When people mistrust you, they are likely not going to follow you. Now, it is also very important to understand and to appreciate that vulnerability and approachability is a core part of building trust. And in doing so, people become vulnerable to you. And so when they grant you the opportunity and you betray that trust, so you are a leader, you are a manager, you are a team lead, you are a professor, you are an HR personality, you are an artist, and you assigned a responsibility to someone so that your work becomes lighter, and the person failed to discharge that duty and responsibility. Trust me, it doesn't matter how much they apologize. Trust is eroded, and that person will not come to you with any important thing again. So it is very important that we need to pay attention to these things that I am sharing with you. Other than that, with all the things that is listed there, emotional intelligence techniques like using storytelling to build a rapport, or use other means, helps us to underpin our influences through over others. And this comes through curiosity, listening, and empathy. Leadership equals relationship, period. Leadership equals relationship. You cannot be a leader and not have a relationship. Oh no, you are not a leader. That is why leadership is intentional. Because you may look, it could be that Kim is not even my friend. In fact, I don't even like her. But the fact that Kim and I work in the same office, I ought to be intentional. We don't have to be best friends. Hey, Kim, how are you? How is your day going today? All right, have a good day. We'll catch up later. Being intentional as a leader, but if you said, I don't like Kim, and so I'm not going to talk to her, guess what? You will not be able to exert your influence when the time came for you to be able to influence her. So it's very important we pay attention to this. Now, I also want us to look at the understanding of the ethical considerations. Because, guys, whatever you do, ethical consideration in persuasion is a big deal. Because persuasion should be handled ethically and responsibly. That is why I said earlier that persuasive communication is never a manipulation. The opposite is also true. Because you can manipulate people thinking you are using persuasive, an act of persuasion, but you are actually manipulating them. You understand? So you see things like, let me give a practical example. So an example like, well, Nicole is one talented young girl who does a lot of voiceover, a lot of things that I need her to do for me, and she does it, without any fear of it. She does it so well. Now, why do you think Nicole does that for me? It is not because I am handsome. No, it's because I've mastered the act of persuasion and I engage her ethically. I appeal to her using the ethos and the pathos and the logos to get her to get things done for me. Nicole, now that you know these things, please continue to do what you do for me. But the truth of the matter is that as soon as I fail to use these persuasive techniques, and then I go to Nicole, I want you to do me a voiceover. And she said, I'm very busy. Unfortunately, something came up and I cannot done it. Okay, thank you. I don't talk to Nicole again. Finish. I don't come to her for anything again. I am using manipulation and not persuasive. It is very, very, very important. So we need to understand that as a leader, you need to get yourself engaged in understanding these pieces. You know, encouraging your team to understand how to use persuasive, ethical, persuasive communication. It's so crucial and so important, you know. And I believe all of you have your personal experiences that you can easily share as far as this process is concerned. Now, the next thing I want us to look at here, and then we will watch a quick video and then we'll go into a breakout. You need to understand the psychology behind persuasion. Yes, so we talk of ethical, but we also need to understand the psychology behind it. Now, guys, you need to understand that the principle of persuasion involves a couple of things: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, and consciousness. Now, these things are very important. And as you see on your screen, each one of them has been explained briefly in order. Because of time, I've reduced that slide. It's a bit bulky there, but for you to have an understanding of what these principles of persuasions entails. And so, having said that and having seen that, what we are going to do right now is that we are going to watch a quick video. And after the video, we will dive straight into a breakout, just to have some quick conversation, and then we'll come back. So let's see this. Is the video playing? Okay. Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio.
Persuade people to do what you want.
Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio.
Natural charm and irresistible charisma, but actually, I use Cialdini's 6 principles of persuasion.
Can you teach me the 6 principles?
Sure. The first principle is scarcity. People want more of those things they can have less of. This applies whether you are offering a product, service, an idea, or a recommendation. Can I help you? I can't decide which cake to get. Well, they are all delicious and made with organic ingredients, but that's the last slice of carrot and poppy seed cake. I'll take the carrot and poppy seed cake.
So, it's not enough to tell people about the benefits of what you are offering. You also need to tell them what is unique about it, and what they stand to lose if they don't accept it.
Exactly. The second principle is reciprocation. When you give someone something, even something very small like a sweet, or something abstract, like your attention, or a compliment, then they will feel indebted to you. This is a psychological phenomenon and is human nature. People don't like to feel indebted and so will strive to pay it back as soon as possible. When I was in the coffee shop, I got you a tall, skinny cappuccino with half a shot of hazelnut syrup. Just how you like it. It's on your desk.
Wow, thanks Maggie.
No problem. Would you be able to stand in for me at the management meeting this afternoon? I need to go to a client meeting.
Yes, I can do that. Happy to help.
So, people feel an obligation to give you something when they have received something first.
Yes. Giving a gift can be very powerful, especially when it is personalized and unexpected. People are more likely to say yes to those that they owe. The third principle is authority. People will follow credible, knowledgeable experts. There are several ways you can establish your credibility. You can let people know what your credentials are, for example, by putting your framed degree certificate on the wall. You can dress like a professional expert, for example, by wearing a smart suit. Or you can get someone to introduce you as a credible expert.
Let me introduce you to Maggie. She has 15 years experience in the field and knows everything there is to know about the VM5000 product range. So you don't actually have to have real authority over the person you want to influence. You don't have to be their boss. You just have to be seen as a credible person.
That's right. Being an authority or an expert on something buys influence, so establish your credibility before your influence attempt. The fourth principle of persuasion is consistency. People have a desire to be consistent with what they have already said or done. If people are not consistent, it creates cognitive dissonance, which is when our beliefs are inconsistent with our actions. Cognitive dissonance is very uncomfortable, and people will quickly change either their beliefs or their actions to remove the dissonance. Well, that's the end of your performance review, Maria. Can you send me a quick email briefly summarizing your objectives for the coming 3 months? Sure. By getting Maria to voluntarily, actively and publicly state what she will do to achieve her objectives, she is more likely to actually do it.
So first get a small commitment from the person, and then their future behavior will be consistent with that?
Yes. The fifth principle is liking. People prefer to say yes to those they know and like. We like people who are similar to us. We like people who pay us compliments. And we like people who cooperate with us towards mutual goals. Hey Annabelle, nice jacket. Thanks. It's new. Would you be able to help me work on a presentation I have to write for the team meeting tomorrow? Sure.
So look for areas of similarity and genuine compliments you can give before you get down to business.
That's it. And finally, the principle of consensus. People are more likely to do what others have done in similar situations. Pointing out what other people have done in the past will help you persuade people to act in similar ways. If these other people are similar to the individual you want to persuade, this will have more sway. Hi David. Would you be interested in taking part in the company fun run next month?
I'm not sure if it's my thing.
Someone from the accounts department takes part each year. And last year the junior accountant actually won.
Oh, go on then. Put my name down.
Great. People will look to the actions and behaviors of others to help determine their own actions.
Like when you buy something online and the website says, other people who bought this item also bought the following products.
Yes. That's a good example.
Thank you, Maggie. That's very helpful. I have a difficult project to complete and I am just going to find Peter to tell him how great his new haircut looks.
Prof. Gabriel and Bosman and I were in the Overcomers. We recognize that persuasion is not just a corporate art, it's also part of the family. We recognize that for you to have a peaceful home, it's good to know how to be persuasive with your spouse, with your children, and your siblings, because family forms the basis of the community. The other aspect is that we mentioned about persuasion in relationship with people and being influential in the context of what we do in the corporate field. How do we engage clients? How do we engage the people that we want to lead? And with that, I would like Gabriel to add a snippet of what he told us in the 1 minute. Gabriel, please go ahead.
Prof, respectfully, just as shared by Caroline, we then delve into the impact of persuasion skills in our job setting. So, for example, I use my political party as an example, and I said that I manage a lot of people from diverse backgrounds, from all walks of life within the same political party, with different understanding, different psychology, and different viewpoints altogether. And so in communicating with these kinds of persons, it's very important that you would have to look at what strategic persuasive skills to use. It's very important that, you use varied types of persuasive skills. For example, in crafting the messages, you have to look at the background of the people that you are going to meet them, and you look at what it is that their understanding is on the subject matter that you want to discuss with them. And that will inform you on how you can craft your message in order to persuade. If you have to use certain illustrations, certain diagrams and all that, if you have to use certain people or some storyline or something to be able to get their first and foremost attention, for them to understand what exactly that you are communicating to them, and for you to have that persuasive influence on them. So that is what I shared with my group. And so in a nutshell, we recognize that it is a tool that we cannot do without when we want to be effective in our communication wherever we find ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Speed of trust. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Nicole here. So our task was to work together to formulate 2 to 3 thoughtful discussion questions that we can all reflect on as a class. So we came up with 3, and I'll start with the first one. How can we practically persuade people? And the second, what ethical considerations should we take into account when we are crafting a persuasive message or argument? And finally, why is persuasion considered an art?
Okay. So, but at your group, what did you guys?
Yeah. So, looking at the first question, how can we practically persuade people? I think Mr. Ambrose, if I remember, came up
Dr.
with.
Ambrose.
Yes. So, okay, Dr. Ambrose came up with appreciating the value of active listening and being able to agree to disagree. For the second question, which is ethical, what ethical considerations should we take into account when we are crafting a persuasive message or argument? We looked at about four considerations, like 4 instances. That's truthfulness, because we believe it's important to ensure that information is accurate and truthful so it doesn't mislead people. And also transparency, where you disclose any potential conflicts, like disclosing any potential conflicts of interest that may affect your message. And we believe that can help to build trust with audiences. And respect for autonomy. So we have to avoid using coercive, like using certain tactics that can manipulate people's emotions, which can lead to, some sort of disrespect for people's space and in the end, manipulating them to, inform certain decisions that are not very, very morally upright, something like that. And finally, we also looked at empathy, like putting yourselves in the shoes of your audience and considering like people's emotions, beliefs, and cultures and values. Is also essential. Thank you.
Persuasion, the overall summary that we say that if you know very well you cannot be persuaded, then you don't apply to people. That's the kind of the golden rule you look at there. If you yourself, you know very well you cannot be persuaded, please don't go and persuade people. It is more of what the group which has just stepped out has said. And then we look at the principles, and then we say that in persuasion you must have a strategy of what you want and how you want to get it. And what hammered very clearly that there is nothing for free in this world. There's nothing for free. If somebody thinks that he's giving you for free, he's going to reap something big from you. So you must be very careful on when someone is persuading you. You must be able to go beyond and see what is this person aiming at. In the persuasion, you give something small and reap big. And that's what the most of the advertisement people do. And we say that in the persuasion, you don't just go one day and you get it. You have to do it repeatedly. So consistency is a principle which we find very key in persuasion.
Got you.
Yeah, that's what we hammered. But what we say as a group, if myself, I'm not be persuaded, don't just go outside there to do it. So we saw it as a golden rule that do to others what you expect to be done to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. So coming back, we continue where we left off. Now we are actually on applying social proof to enhance persuasive communication. Now, it is very important to understand that social proof is the psychological phenomenon where people follow the actions of others in order to reflect correct behavior for a given situation. So leaders can also leverage this principle to enhance persuasions and influence in various contexts. So we need to pay attention and to realize that relevance can be used as a way of social proof. Public speaking, it's also another important factor that we also need to pay attention to, because public speaking, what it does is that it also creates an environment for a leader to use motivational speeches. We can cite examples of Barack Obama, Nelson Mandela, and great eloquent speakers, because they are able to use speeches to influence their audiences. It's very important. Organizational change is also a very key factor that we ought to pay attention to as far as persuasive communication is concerned. Why? Because whether we like it or not, we go through a process of change at all times. And as more investment is put into organizational change, we are able to also establish in the minds of our people, or the people that we follow, that it gives them an opportunity to know that they can also be heard. So in this context, all that I want to say here is that the core psychology remains similar. People follow the lead of similar to others. What it means is that people will follow what they are familiar with. And so wise leaders must always learn to tap into the tendency rather than fight against it. When there is a change, now we live in the world of AI technology. We need to embrace it. We don't have to fight it, because if you fight it, you are fighting a loose cause. We need to leverage social proof and enhance persuasion for more effective, intuitive, and sustainable approach using that phenomenon. Now, how do we overcome cognitive biases that hinders persuasion? And I'll be running a little faster here because I'm trying to wrap up. Now, the ability to persuade and to motivate others is always invaluable yet potential. Now, the reason is because one that calls for a thoughtful analysis, because in order for you to be able to pursue people, you need to have a very thorough analysis, which is that while influencing people, like all the factors that we talked about, social proof, scarcity, and just name them, we must weigh a broader impact rather than narrowing focus of the outcomes. To that end, one of the things that we need to appreciate and understand is that the end do not always justify the means, especially when reputation, trust, and human dignities are at stake. So as a persuader and a change agent, we need to lead with transparency. We lead with respect. We need to lead and emphasize on our informed assumptions of consent. This means that we must clearly articulate both the pros and cons of our ideas while minimizing pressure tactics on people who follows us, especially as a way of minimizing judgment. So it's very important we pay attention to some of these principles because it will help us get through. Now, as we wrap up, I want you to also go into the chat and share with us, based on what you've seen on the screen and what you have learned so far, what has been your default cognitive bias. Are you the type of confirming bias? Are you the type of loss aversion? Are you the type of algorithm bias? Are you the type of availability bias? What type of biasness do you think as an individual you have exhibited over the years? And I think it will help us to also understand your default principle that you use as an overcoming cognitive biasness as far as persuasive communication is concerned. So just go ahead and put it in the slide, in the chat as we wrap up. Now, the next thing I want us to pay attention to is how to develop your persuasive communication. Persuasive communication, guys. Effective communication is critical to persuasion. And leaders have several options to utilize that. Among them is to ask some thoughtful questions. Being able to use paraphrasing to get and to explain or to get confirmation from what people are saying. And to allow some space through patient silence. This is very important. And the use of non-verbal communication is important. Thank you, Professor Gerard, anchoring biases. I want to see what the rest your biasness is. Please, we all have biasness, whether you like it or not. So don't be a superhuman being to believe that you don't have bias. We all do. Now, it is important to understand that leadership devoid of effective communication across all channels, which is verbal, non-verbal, written, digital, severely limit our influence and stunt inspiration. The currency for persuasion and motivation is robust two-way communication. If we lack two-way communication, we will not be able to communicate effectively with the people that we want to lead. Now, we also talked earlier on about crafting compelling messages that resonate with your audience. We've talked about it, so I will not waste too much time to go into that. But you must first of all know your audience, understand their goals and their values, and ensure that you lead with relevance. If you are not relevant, you will lose your influence over the people you are leading. Learn to craft an emotive narrative. What does that mean? What it means is that we should be able to actually create an environment where we are able to express our emotions in such a way that we can use things like storytellings, visual languages to be able to communicate effectively to the people that we are leading. We must also learn to align our shared vision, because if your vision is only with you and people don't know your vision, they will not be able to follow through with you. And again, we must use presumptive language. Phrase call to action using when instead of if. You understand? Very important. When instead of if, to convey inability and enthusiasm. So please make sure we pay attention to some of these details, because that is the only way by which we are able to influence the people around us. Now, how about using storytelling as a persuasive language? Storytelling is an extraordinary powerful tool for persuasion and influence. Effective storytelling utilizes basic narrative elements in combination with psychological principles to move people emotionally and to drive message home memorably. The reason I'm telling you this is because storytelling stays in the minds of people. It helps us to appeal. It helps us to evocative imaginary things in our mind. In fact, it also helps us to release tensions. And sometimes storytelling is all about humor. We use humor, but at the same time, we are using that language to bring people on board. Folks, and I want you to go into the chat room and share in the chat room one person that you believe has used storytelling to communicate effectively in his or her work. A good example will be Maya Angelou. So I've given mine. I want everyone to mention theirs. One person that you believe, Obama, great. One person that you believe have used that tool effectively in communication. So we have Obama, I have Maya Angelou. We also have Michelle Obama. Who else? Please, I want to make sure we are interacting. So please, we are wrapping up. And so I want you to put your thoughts there as well. Nelson Mandela. Thank you, Prof. Nelson Mandela. Guys, I'm still reading. I'm trying to understand. I want to make sure all of us are here and you are with me. Not that you have checked out and you are not with me. So if you don't mention, I'll call in your names. Nelson Mandela, Maya Angelou. Thank you. Who else? Or Obama. All right. So it look everybody is just Obama, Maya Angelou, Michelle, Nelson Mandela. Guys, come on. There are a lot of people who have used storytelling to make impacts in life. Think deeper. You'll be able to renown people. Those of you who were Jerry Rollins, yes. Those of you who were at the JAGILS dinner last year, you saw Rodica use storytelling to produce a persuasive conversation in the room. Gandhi, Richard Branson, yes, Billy Graham. All these individuals have used storytelling as a way of effective communicating with Ben Carlson. That's right, Caroline. So let's keep that in mind. Now, using nonverbal clues and body language in persuasive interaction is also very important. Much of communication effectiveness occurs outside of the spoken word. Pay attention. Much of effective communication occurs outside of the spoken word. Persuasive prowess requires tapping intentionally into nonverbal tools of eye engagement, or otherwise eye contact, posture, gesture, facial expression, vocal variety. Now, all these are strategic demonstrations of our reactions in persuasive communication. So in order for you to be a master communicator, you need to understand the signals that the body constantly projects and realize during such communication. So it's very important to think through. Maxwell said Oprah Winfrey. That's absolutely true. And Chichi said Roland Tropo Cisco. Yes, that's true. As well, I recently read a book of Roland. Yeah. Now, the building rapport and establishing influence. Guys, I cannot say this enough, that in order for you to Bossman, if you can mute your background, please. All right. So if you can work and build the influence of people, we need to understand that building rapport and establishing influence is an act of persuasion. The reason they are is because once you are able to empathically and emotionally engage with people, Based on the relationship you have built with them and the show of credibility, you are able to bring them along the path by using things like establishing credibility, creating a positive and engaging environment, and then adaptation. And thank you, Barikisu. Yes, Sheikh Dr. Usmanu Nuru Sharabutu, the chief imam, uses a lot of storytelling to communicate to his followers. Thank you very much. Yes, Bossman, I could hear you. Thank you. You had a background noise, so we needed your attention. All right. So in wrapping up, we also need to develop strategies of overcoming resistance and objections, because whilst you are using persuasive communication, you are also going to have a problem where you have to overcome them. And one of the things that we need to understand deeply is, first, to be able to listen to understand. I have said it and I'll repeat it again. 98.2% of the world population listens to respond or listens to reply. They don't listen to understand. In order for you to be a persuasive communicator, you must listen to understand. And then you must also anticipate, and you must learn how to turn objection into opportunities. Somebody said, no, unfortunately, I can't make it today. Find a way to turn that objection into an opportunity. That's okay. I understand. Things happen. Sometimes we don't have time on our hand. How about next week? Can we arrange a meeting next week? You are turning objection into opportunities. Always see opportunity in an objection. It is very, very important we pay attention to that. And then as we practice ethical consideration in persuasion, we need to maintain integrity and ethical standards. You cannot tell somebody to do something and then you do otherwise. We need to balance our personal interest with the best interest of other people. Because the time is not good for you, so you didn't schedule the meeting when the meeting time was good for everybody. You were looking at your personal interest than the rest of the people. If you are 20 people and 16 people have time to attend a meeting, the 3 of you should sacrifice to be there. Don't cancel the meeting because the 3 of you are not able to attend, and so the entire meeting needs to be canceled. And ensuring transparency and honesty in persuasive communication is a key way by which you get people's attention and bring them to your fold. After we have done all this, guys, like we said from the beginning, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You have to do role play with your children at home, use persuasive conversation at home, at your workplace. In fact, go beyond and even ask for constructive feedback over issues. And I tell people all the time, if you master the act of communication, especially persuasive communication, you will realize that feedback, constructive feedback, it's one key area by which you improve, because you are not actually going to take things personal when people give you feedback. Feedback is an opinion of what people felt from what you presented to them. So the fact that you think you did good, or I took this class and I have spent some energy and power to put things together, your feedback will determine whether or not I did an excellent job, not because I think I did well. So we need to pay attention to that. And then I will also ask that we develop our own action plans. As I alluded, I think the slide repeated itself. I'm sorry about that. Yes, so the slide repeated itself like 3 times. Okay, it's fine. So now that we have looked at all the details and everything involved, we are going to watch one last video, and that is the last thing we are doing. When we come back, it's time for any question and we are done. This is a short video, but very important. It's going to give you tricks that you can use in persuasive communication.
Brainy Dose presents 15 psychology tricks to persuade anyone. Persuasion is a very useful skill that comes in handy in so many circumstances. In fact, the art of persuasion is one of the most practical skills you could learn. Maybe you need to close an important sale or coax your boss into giving you a raise. Perhaps you want to get your spouse to see your point of view, or you simply want to persuade someone to do a favor for you. In situations like these, it's good to know how to use psychology to your advantage, especially since convincing others, mostly those with strongly opposing views, can be difficult. Understanding how and when to use the following tricks will also help you detect when they are being used on you. Number 1. Explain the reason for your request. Have you ever had to stand in line for something important, but you were in a real hurry? Maybe you even tried to seek permission to cut in line, but it probably didn't work. You know, you could have increased your chances if you had given a compelling reason. You could have simply said something like, "Can I cut in line? I only have a few items and I'm in a rush." Or, "Can I cut in line? I'm about to miss my flight." Giving reasons for your request will increase the chances of persuading the other person. And remember, the bigger your request, the more compelling your reason should be. Number 2, use polite expressions. Please and thank you are magical words that you need to learn to apply when trying to persuade people. As humans, we have been generally raised and conditioned to react well to the usage of these words. We are more open to requests than instructions. After all, no one likes to be ordered around. A smiling face and a please can work wonders. So use polite expressions whenever you're trying to persuade someone to do something. You may just get your request granted. Number 3, compliment. Compliments can go a long way. They are very useful in persuasion because when you compliment someone, they are instantly more open to hearing what you have to say. Also, when you give people compliments, it can change some of the preconceived notions they might have had about you. You just have to ensure your compliments are very honest and subtle. Complimenting people when you don't really mean it will do the exact opposite of what you want it to do. Number 4, offer a drink. Take things a step further. While talking to the person you're trying to persuade, offer them a warm beverage, such as a cup of coffee or tea. Research suggests that a warm drink put in someone's hands can project feelings of warmth from you toward them, making them feel that you are a welcoming and likable person. Be careful, however, because giving them a cold drink can have the opposite effect. Number 5, be an active listener. One of the main qualities of top persuasive people is that they are very good listeners. Why is listening an important part of persuasion? In persuasion, you're trying to sell your ideas or get consent to your request. But how do you get people to accept your request? This is where listening becomes a real benefit. Listening will help you understand the person you're trying to persuade. You will come to discover some of the objections and worries they might have regarding your request, and this will in turn help you to be able to present your ideas and requests in more appealing ways. In the art of persuasion, listening is more important than talking. Number 6, use fluid speech. Confidence is key to persuading people. When you speak with your sentences colored with hesitant words such as like or I mean, it makes you appear less confident and less sure of what you're talking about. Oftentimes, people interpret fluidity in speech to mean confidence and validity. Basically, the more confident you appear in your speech, the easier it will be to persuade others. Number 7, talk faster. Talking at a faster pace can also help when you're trying to persuade people. When you're speaking quickly, the person you're speaking to has to listen quickly enough to be able to soak in and follow what you're saying. They won't have enough time to pick apart your points. Talking faster will also make you seem more confident. When you're speaking quickly and fluidly, your listeners, either subconsciously or consciously, feel like your confidence indicates that you really know what you're talking about. Therefore, they will be more inclined to listen to your arguments and agree to your requests. Number 8, repeat speech and action. Another psychology trick in persuading people is to sometimes repeat their words and copy their actions. When you repeat what someone has said back to them, it makes them feel like you are listening, and they will be more compelled to talk and listen to you. This can help you establish a bond with them, and they will be more open to your request. Even therapists and psychologists have been known to use this method in trying to get their patients to relax in their sessions with them. However, make sure that you don't overdo this, because you will come across as weird or awkward, which is the exact opposite of what you want. Number 9. Nodding. If you want people to feel like you're paying attention and agree with their opinions, then nod. Nodding is another psychological trick that is often used by people when they're trying to persuade someone. While having a conversation with someone, nod occasionally to affirm what the other person is saying. When you do this while you're talking, it will be difficult for the listener not to nod, too. They will eventually become more accommodating and agreeable subconsciously to what you're saying. Number 10. Use reciprocation to create an obligation. Imagine a scenario where your neighbor lends you their lawnmower, or a colleague at work unexpectedly passes you a lead. How would you feel? I can tell you how you'll feel. You'll feel very grateful and feel like you owe them something in return. Oftentimes, when you do someone a favor, they feel obligated to return it, especially when they weren't expecting it at all. You should learn to use this psychological trick to help make your relationships buoyant. The feeling of indebtedness in people will trigger an obligation to reciprocate, and when you make your requests, they'll be far less likely to reject you. Number 11. Use the contrasting technique. The contrasting technique is a very effective tool that is commonly used in bargaining. What is it all about? The contrasting technique is mainly a method in which you make demands which are much higher than what you actually want, and then you gradually bargain back down to what you really desired. This method works on people because of the huge contrast between the first demand and the bargain one. In the other person's mind, they think the much lower price is relatively more ideal. Number 12. Use timing to your advantage. Another key trick is learning to use timing to your advantage. If you study people closely, you will discover that some people tend to be more agreeable when they are mentally fatigued. Whenever you have a request that someone might not quickly consent to, watch the person closely and make the request just after they've done a mentally daunting task. Even if you don't get their response immediately, you will at least be able to get the person to listen to your demands. You should note that there is no guarantee though. The success of this technique actually depends on the person, but trying never hurts. Number 13. Use balanced arguments. Best concepts often have flaws in them, even if very minimal. While many people think the best way to persuade others to buy an idea or perspective is to focus on all the positives and totally avoid all the negatives, research has proven otherwise. It is actually proven that presenting a balanced argument is the best way to convince someone. Don't completely focus on the positives of your ideas and ignore the negatives. Some people will see it as deceptive if you don't talk about the obvious negatives that might come with your plans. Even if they can't find any flaws, they will feel your ideas are too good to be true and try to avoid having anything to do with it. It is easier to persuade people when you present both sides of an argument. They tend to deem you more trustworthy and will likely be more open to what you have to say. When someone trusts you, they are much easier to persuade. Number 14. Use congruence to obtain a wanted outcome. In your pursuit of the desired response, you can get people to act even before they make up their minds. Let's assume you are out with a friend, and you want to watch a movie at the cinema, but your friend is not sure if they want to go. Here's what you can do. Start moving toward the cinema as your friend is trying to decide what to do. They will be more likely to agree with you and go see the movie. This is the same method salespeople apply when closing a deal. Because handshakes are often attached to cementing deals, a salesperson will shake your hand while you're trying to make up your mind. By doing this, they are more likely to close the deal. Number 15. The power of repetition. The power of repetition should never be understated or underrated. I'm sure you know a song that you didn't like the first time you heard, but eventually it grew on you after hearing it multiple times. This is how powerful repetition can be. Our brains like patterns and repetition in establishing familiarity. Many times, we like ideas and plans better after we have been repeatedly exposed to them. Whatever idea or argument you're trying to sell, the crucial information should be repeated in different ways over the course of your conversation. You shouldn't repeat them more than 3 times though, because saying the same thing too often can make the person resistant to it. Too much of anything is bad. Persuasion is key to getting others to agree to your requests, but you should know where to draw the line. There is persuasion and there is manipulation. They are both vastly different concepts. Good intentions are always the mindset behind persuasion, while manipulation always has bad intentions. A manipulator does not respect boundaries. He or she will do anything to get someone to agree with them, even if they have to lie. When lies and half-truths are involved, you've crossed boundaries into manipulation, and nothing good ever comes from that. So be sure to keep this in mind if you decide to use any of these psychological tricks. Have you ever used these tricks before? Or have you noticed others using them on you in order to get you to do something? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.
So I think that's a very powerful way of ending the class and summarizing it. Now, I will make room for any question. Any question that you have, you can ask. Otherwise, please, I want you to use the chat box to give me a feedback. Feedback is important to me. It helps me to improve and be honest with me whether I was able to meet your expectation and the objectives that we set for ourselves when we're beginning the classes. If you feel you have gained something new that you never knew before, if you have gained another skill, or if the videos that we watch were impactful and help summarize all that we have done in the last 2 hours, even though the class was supposed to be an hour 15 minutes. Of course, we understand some technicalities and pace and here and there, but if this has been helpful, please, I want you to use the comment box and let me know what you think. Ika, thank you, Chichi, thank you, Dr. Kendrick. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Professor Nyari. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ambrose. Thank you, Amma. We are convinced, not confused. Excellent job. I like that. Exactly. Thank you, guys. Indeed, it was a pleasure to having all of you here. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Abraham. And I like these feedbacks because the whole goal, and Bosma, thank you. I appreciate you for coming and learning, and thank you, Chris, as well. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to get this video worked on, and then we will archive it on our website or in our YouTube link, and I'll share it with all of you who attended as well, so you can listen to it again and enjoy it. Thank you, thank you, Vida. I appreciate all of your and let me see. Bosman said, Prof, please, do you mean our first approach to every question and situation is very important and must be considered? Absolutely, Bosman, because first impressions are indelible. I'll tell you something here. I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but when I first met Amma, now I wasn't sure of her. So I went to somebody who knew her. And the first word that came out of this person who knew her, and I'm talking of a big man, not some other person on the street. The first thing he said to me was that, and this is, I'm quoting him, that is a very serious-minded lady. So you see, an impression was immediately formed in my mind. So then I went into my persuasive communication tools and decided, how am I going to get this serious-minded person into my corner? Then I started using my ethos, and I started using my logos and my pathos. So it was helpful for me to be able to use those tools to get her to come along. Now, remember what I said in my presentation. I said we ought to use the logical approach to get the mindset of people in order to win them by knowing their intentions. So when I got closer to Alma, I realized she has great potentials, but she's very reserved because her temperament belongs to the introvert temperaments. So because of that background and my understanding of persuasive communication, I was able to engage her and push her into different areas of training and capacity building until such a time that she herself has become overly excited about training that she can't do anything about it any longer. That is how we communicate. So yes, Bosman, you ought to make sure that the first impressions, because they are indelible, when you are communicating and you are persuading, you must pay attention to that at the beginning of your interaction and conversation. Thank you very much. Let's see, what else do we have? Prof, the purpose for the workshop has been made. Thank you for your dedication and hard work. Guys, I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. And if there is no other question or other contribution, once again, I want to thank all of you for spending some time with me today. This is a free course. Technically, this course is an expensive course. I'm sure all of you will know, but we provided it for free so that we will become great leaders within our institutions. The people we are leading, we can persuasively influence them. We can influence the people in our homes. We can influence the people in our workplace. And then we can persuade those who matters most to us. When you master the act of persuasive communication, you don't get upset with people because you will use your tools, your ethos, your logos, and your pathos, and you'll get result. God bless all of you, and catch you up whenever we get the opportunity to meet again. And thank you, and God bless all of you. Bye-bye for now.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Bye.
Bye.